Hi everyone, welcome to episode 25. My guest today is a BJJ Brown Belt and Judo Black Belt from Relentless Martial Arts in Monroe, North Carolina, Vernon Kirk.
It's time to high five and fist bump. A jiu-jitsu podcast for the everyday grappler. Let's talk subs. Let's talk positions. Let's talk dominating the mats. Welcome to the Let's Talk Jiu-Jitsu podcast with Raymond Terrence.
So my guest today is a BJJ Brown Belt and Judo Black Belt. He has fought in multiple Fight to Win shows from Relentless Martial Arts in Monroe, North Carolina, Vernon Kirk. Let's talk Jiu-Jitsu.
How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing great. Hey, thanks for taking the time to be on. You were just telling me that you just finished training.
Yes, I did. Had a friend of mine come up from Columbia, South Carolina named Nader. He runs a Soul Fighters affiliate down there.
Okay, that's great. And do you on Sundays do you have a regular class or do you hold an open mat?
No, it's more of like I treat it like an actual judo class. So I run really a jiu-jitsu class during the week, but some of my guys want a little bit more of like a judo class. And so what I do is I run it, a lot more like, we keep it more throw heavy. We'll still do groundwork and stuff like that, but we make it a lot more, it's a little bit more of like a judo mix type of thing is the best way to put it.
Okay, that's cool. That's awesome. Okay, well, maybe tell everybody a little bit about how you got into martial arts and your background.
Current flavor or old flavor of martial arts?
Let's go old to new.
Okay, so I grew up in D.C. I grew up like 4 blocks from the vice president's house.
Oh, cool.
And I did go to my neighborhood school because when I was supposed to go into pre-K, my mom was an aide there. And so I went to the next neighborhood up, which is one of the richest neighborhoods in D.C. And my neighborhood was very working class. Like I grew up in the same house my mom grew up in. And by about 3rd or 4th grade, everybody kind of started to realize that I wasn't from the neighborhood and things like that. And I started getting picked on. And the school wouldn't do anything about it. And so my parents, I actually asked my mom this question like a couple of weeks ago. I said, how did you find the school you took me to? And she goes, well, it was by where I used to buy jeans from, and I saw it, and I took you in. I said, okay. And so it was a Taekwondo school, and the guy who ran it was this little Korean man, and he had it was Chung Do Kwan style Taekwondo, which I think means blue wave, and he had run the national, like the school that was founded in for like 10 years, and he had also been a Gold Gloves boxer when he moved to the U.S. And like the only time we ever used pads was when we competed. He told my mom the first day of class, he goes, you don't come for the first few weeks. And my mom goes, why? He goes, well, he will make a mistake and I will hit him with a big stick. And my mom said, cool, and wrote him a check. So that was probably near the end of 3rd grade. And then, or maybe like 4th grade, I kind of forget. But I remember the first day of school in 5th grade, I beat up 3 kids. And the next year I was student council president.
Oh, nice. That worked out well.
Yes, it did. And so when I left elementary school, I ended up going to a private school out in Maryland. And, I was also getting braces and karate were the same amount a month or Taekwondo. And on top of it, I had to, I was basically out there on for lack of better terms, an athletic scholarship because of football. And so I just didn't have the time. So I quit at Brown Belt. And I wrestled in 8th grade and in my 10th and 11th grade years. And I still remember not a lot of it, but I actually end up using a good bit of it when I do stuff now. And then I took a little bit of some martial arts classes in college, but then I stopped. And when I was 31, I was about 290 pounds. And my son, it was getting into the summer, and my son, we tried him in soccer, and he was 5 at the time. And he liked it, but when it came time for games, he had like stage fright. He wouldn't go out onto the field for games. And so what we ended up doing is we were like, okay, well, what do you want to do? And he goes, I want to do karate. I was like, okay, cool. I did some stuff like that. That should be really good for you. And there was this Taekwondo school, which kind of ironically is now my instructor's gym. But we go there, and the woman who ran it, she was kind of snotty. Like, my son's 5, and I know there's a difference between Taekwondo and karate, even if it's just geographical. I know there's a difference.
Right.
But my son looks at me and goes, "Daddy, do I get my karate uniform now?" And this woman goes, "It's a Taekwondo uniform," like in a really snotty tone of voice. And I'm like, "Well, we're never coming back here. Okay, this is cool." And so the next day was the last day of school, and I'm there talking to one of the other dads, and my wife had already talked to him. And he goes, "Don't worry, don't, that place sucks. The other place you're thinking about," he's like, "they're a ripoff. Don't go there." He goes, come with me to this judo school." I said, "Okay." I kind of knew what judo was, but not really. And I'm like, "Okay." So we take him, and he had a couple of friends in the class already because they were kids from his class, and he knew them, and they were buddies, and they had a really good time just kind of doing whatever. And we get done. I'm like, "Buddy, did you have a good time?" He goes, "Yeah, Dad, this was fun." I'm like, "You want to do it again?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Cool." So I start talking to the instructor, and he goes, I'm like, "So how much your class is? When's the next class? All that stuff." And he goes, "And so we're getting ready to leave." And he goes, I'm like, "All right, we'll see you tomorrow." And he goes, "Big guy, where are you going?" And I go, "The adult class is over. I mean, the kids class is over." And he goes, "Yeah, but the adult class is starting." And I'm like, "You think my 5-year-old's ready for the adult class? Awesome." And he's like, "Get out here, big guy." Okay. And so at first I just kind of did it to be with him. And then I started to really get into it. I was like, "Oh, this is fun. I've missed this in my life." And then that was June. And near the end of the year, there were a couple of guys, like the guy who brought me and a couple of other guys who, they were a belt or so ahead of me, which in judo, the belts in the beginning come a little bit faster.
Mm-hmm.
And so they've been there, longer than me, but not terribly longer. But I was starting to beat them on their feet. But as soon as we hit the ground, they were killing me. And I'm like, "How are you that much better than me on the ground?" And they go, "Well, we also train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at this place in Mebane. And the instructor's a 4th degree black belt from Rio." And I'm like, "What? Take me."
Take me there now.
Right. And so I started with my professor in December of that year. It was 2009. And so it was Monday, Wednesday, Friday was jiu-jitsu. Tuesday and Thursday was judo. Saturday, there was always a judo class, so I always go to that. If my instructor had no-gi and conditioning that morning, I would go to that as well. And I didn't really compete a lot for my first year or so. I started June of 2009. I did a judo tournament in August of 2009, and it was really fun because they only separated by weight class. They didn't separate by rank. So my first match was against a black belt.
Wow.
Yeah, and I didn't get thrown because basically every time he looked like he was going to throw me, I spazzed out and went for a throw, and he ended up catching me in a really awful bulldog choke type of thing that there's no way I would ever get caught in that now. But back then I knew nothing. And then I competed maybe 2 or 3 times the following year just in judo. And then it was October, I believe, and my instructor had the promotion list posted, and my name wasn't on it. And I'd only been there for about 10 months, and I was like, "Well, I get that. There's time and rank and da-da-da," but not sound like a complete cocky prick, but I did think I was better than most of the guys on the list. But I also understood because I was beating them in class, but I also understood why, because they'd all been there longer than me. And so I was like, "Well, here's what I'm going to do. There's a tournament in January. I'm going to go win that. And then there's a Naga in March, and I'm going to go win that at blue belt. And then in May, he's going to have no choice but to promote me." And a week later, he comes up to me on Monday, and it was really kind of almost cryptic. And he goes, "Vernon, I watch you." I'm like, "You're always watching me. What the hell are you talking about?" I didn't think twice about it. And then that Friday, him and my really good friend John Shell, they both walk up to me and they go, "Okay, so you're getting a blue belt in a couple of weeks." And I'm like, "Oh, shit. Okay. Wow. All right. Cool." And so I went and actually did my first tournament as a blue belt, not as a white belt. And I did try to go into beginner for no-gi because I'd maybe had 4 no-gi classes. I'm like, "But I don't do no-gi." They're like, "Yeah, but you're a blue belt." "But I don't do no-gi." "Yeah, you're an intermediate." "Oh, that sucks." I did take gold medal in my gi division though, so at least I had that working for me.
Nice.
And I don't know when you're going to be airing this, but by about this time next week, I'm actually going to have a different color belt.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, he called me up like the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, and I posted a picture on Facebook from like 2 years ago that like I'd saved to my phone and acted like it was a new post where I tried to trim my beard and I completely screwed it up. And so I was clean shaven. And I was like, man, new year, new me, it's time for a change. Just to kind of troll people. And so he video chats me. I'm almost to my gym to teach classes. And he goes, man, I think you gonna look different, Vernon. And I was like, I was just having some fun with people. He goes, okay. Oh, I forgot we were talking about something else. And then he says to me, because we talked like maybe a week or so before, and we talked about belt promotions. And, he was like, I'm going to give you a couple of stripes and da-da-da. And I was like, okay, cool, no problem. And he goes to me, he goes, what belt size are you? And I'm thinking like he's asking for somebody else who's my size. I'm not even thinking about it. I'm like, I'm an A3. Why? And he goes, okay, so January when we go belt promotion, you go black belt. I was like, what? Oh, no, oh, shit. If you say so, damn.
Nice. That's awesome, though. Congrats. It's nice to have I'm not too sure at Black Belt if most professors give their brown belts a heads up before it happens. I guess you don't really have a choice, right?
Well, the way I actually had this talk with my instructor years ago, and because I asked him, I was like, why do you promote the way you do? And he goes, man, Vernon, he goes, there's 4 belts you get promoted to in jiu-jitsu. There's blue, there's purple, there's brown, and there's black. He goes, once you hit black, your degrees come from the federation. Mm-hmm. He goes, obviously there's no promotion ceremony for your white belt. So there's 4 belts. He goes, there's 3 ways to do belt promotions. There's testing, which him and I both are not a fan of. Like when I took my black belt test for judo, I had to do kata. I had to do like a 200 question online, like written type test. Like what they got, it was multiple choice.
Okay.
But like, I was like, I'm a grown man with a career and a job. I got a job and a family. I don't need to like these weird esoteric Japanese terms and who was the 1960 Olympic team. I don't need to know that.
Let me just throw somebody and show you I can do it.
Exactly. Yeah. And then, so that's one way. He goes, 2 is surprise. And he goes like, look, you get your belt on the podium at Worlds. That's really cool. Mm-hmm. But like, I mean, let's face it, like being promoted at like the local, Naga or Grappling Industries or whatever, like, I mean, that's cool and all, but it's not the same thing. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just not. And then he goes, the third type, again, this is what he does. He goes, we have a party. He's like, we have a big promotion ceremony. We hang out. We roll. We have a good time. And he goes, that's what I want. He goes, make sure your family's there. This is special. You've earned this. It is important. I mean, we're talking almost 11 years of my life that I have, bled and surgery and, I mean, all of this crap. And then to like randomly get it on a Tuesday without like my kids there and without my mom or my wife there, like that kind of sucks.
Yeah.
No,
I mean? For sure.
Those people have sacrificed, just as much as you have.
Yeah.
I mean, and the other really cool thing about Saturday is I get to, my son's been training with me since he was 5, and he's turning 16 this month, so I get to put a blue belt around his waist.
That's awesome.
Yep.
That's really cool. So how do you guys work when it comes to belt promotions? Like, do you guys, I'm just curious, I always ask my guests this because it's fun to see how different academies, all over the States and Canada and all over the place, they promote their students. So do you guys have like set times during the year that everyone comes in and they know that they're going for their belt test, or how does that work?
Well, we don't do the testing thing. So for us, it's basically like we do it like, we have one big one as a team. Like my instructor is a 6th degree now, but he's got an academy in Mebane, which is about 2 hours north of me in North Carolina.
That's Professor Rubens Rodriguez, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And he's got an academy there. It's actually owned by Alan Crowder, who just retired from the UFC. and Alan opened up like it was his dad owns like the workout gym in town, and so the Taekwondo school was renting like kind of the space on the end. So Alan, when the woman decided to retire, Alan retained a couple of their instructors, still runs Taekwondo out of it, kind of made it like a CrossFit-y, kind of like workout. Like he's got like striking and other types of striking in there and conditioning and stuff too. And then Rubens is running the jiu-jitsu out of it with a couple of his guys as well. And then so we've got that one. My best friend John Shell's got Shell Shock BJJ in Fuquay, North Carolina. We've got my gym down in Monroe. We've got Section 8 in Lexington, North Carolina. And then we've got Evolution Fitness in Concord, North Carolina. And so once a year, we all get together and we do like this big promotion ceremony. That's what we're doing Saturday.
Okay.
But usually like mid-year-ish, we will all kind of have our own for like the people who like they weren't ready maybe now, but they definitely don't need to wait another 6 months or so. And so we'll do more of like kind of like the smaller like family type one then. Or like I've even done it where like I've like, maybe like a couple of us will get together and like, or like I'll bring my guys up to Mebane and I'll promote them up there, in front of Ruben or something like that. Because, he had a stroke a couple of years ago, so he does not get around as well as he used to. So,
okay.
I always want to make sure he's a part of it.
Is he still training?
Oh yeah, not really. He had a massive stroke September of 17, and at the end of 18, they actually did open heart surgery on him to kind of fix a few things.
Okay.
And so he's doing a lot more like physical therapy and stuff like that. But he's on the mats every night, and he was a Judo Black Belt before he started training jiu-jitsu. Oh, and nice. He's one of those guys where he's been doing this, training judo since the 70s, jiu-jitsu since the 80s. And he can just look at positions and just tell you, move your hand here, put your knee there. And like to this day, if I'm stuck, I either send him video or when I go up there, because my mom lives, 4 miles from the gym, when I go up to see my mom, I always make it a point to go train with him. And I, like to this day, I'm like, hey, professor, what do you think about this? What about this? And he will sit there and he will walk you through it. And it is usually some of the best advice you're going to get. Guys like that, man, like when you would roll with him, like one of the things that I think a lot of us do where like if you're a little athletic or if you have, you've got good escape skills, like I will give you an inch hoping you take a mile. Mm-hmm. And if you take that mile, then I'm going to get out. And Ruben would take that inch and stop and then just make you wait. And then he'd take that next inch. And next thing you know, he's in mount and you're like, how the fuck did I get here? This is horrible. And like, I mean, the man is, there's always like, everybody always posts those things like, well, if your instructor doesn't roll with you, like Ruben would roll with you, but he wouldn't roll all the time. But the man was in his, before the stroke, he was in his 50s. He had a bad knee and he couldn't see out of one eye because when he was working, he used to work for the DOT in North Carolina, and another car hit him head on going the wrong way on the highway, and he was in a major car wreck. And it's like, wow, like, yeah, it's like he doesn't want to get, he didn't want to get beat up by some spazzy white belt. You know what I mean? Yeah. Which, when you've been that long in the game, you have the right to do that. Like we had a guy when I first started training who was 400 pounds. And I mean, I'm not saying, oh, no. He was legitly 400 pounds. And Ruben would roll with him. And then one day, Mubarak just moved into him really hard. And Ruben was 2 knees on the ground. And Ruben's like, I've never been 2 knees on the ground and had my back touch the mat, except for that one time. And he goes, I popped back up, I pushed back, and I kicked him in the chest because I was like, God damn.
Hey, I have a question for you on that, actually. When it comes to rolling, just because I was talking about it a few days ago at the academy, and we were talking about rolling with bigger guys and being in the line and, not avoiding bigger guys, but especially a lot of the competitors, they will specifically roll with people around, that's around their weight or at their weight or less, knowing that in competition they're not going to end up with a 300-pound guy, so they're training for something very specific. So on a day-to-day, are you the type of guy that will just pick anybody down the line, doesn't really matter how big you are or how small, or do you have any philosophies when it comes to, rolling with people that are twice your weight or 3 times your weight?
I will always roll with a bigger guy. I was the bigger guy. Like I said, the first time I stepped on the mats, I was 290 pounds.
Yeah, I saw a picture of you on the website, like the before and after. Yeah. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it was the way I view it is this. Like, look, I'm not gonna put, like, I have bigger guys that I will not put with smaller people because they don't know how to control it yet. But if you're a blue belt and you're a bigger dude and you don't know how to roll with somebody smaller, it's because nobody's ever taught you. Mm-hmm. I do feel there is a difference between big guy jiu-jitsu and little guy jiu-jitsu. I don't think a lot of big guy jiu-jitsu is covered. And like the guys who are out there who are bigger guys who are putting out material, like I love BJJ. Like that is like one of my favorite people to watch do jiu-jitsu. But at the same time, like I'm 41 years old and I'm fairly athletic. Like I'm not like, I always say, my joke is I'm better than average, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't mean by a lot. You know what I mean? Like, they say average height is 5'8". I'm 5'10". I think that's like kind of a good way to kind of describe how I'm better than average. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I'm pretty athletic for a guy my size and my age, but that doesn't mean I can do some of that crazy stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think there are some guys who, like, if you're a week out and you don't want to roll with somebody who's 260 pounds, I get it. But also, if you're a competitor, like, you not do absolute divisions, like, you're gonna face somebody like that sooner or later if you don't do absolute divisions. Like, when I was my last year at Purple, 2017, I went to 2 seminars that really helped me a lot. Like, sometimes seminars are great because you learn about a new position or something kind of like what I call the larger frame of jiu-jitsu, where like that really helps you. But sometimes it's really good because it cleans up one little thing, but that one little thing is a go-to of yours, and now you're a monster with it. And so the 2 things that were fixed for me were my north-south Kimura, which Marcelo Cohen fixed, who, if you don't know who he is, he's a rooster weight, and he's 130 pounds soaking wet. And that man has got one of the nastiest Kimura games on the planet. His videos are available on BJJ Fanatics and a few other places. I highly suggest people go buy them because he is a wizard with that stuff. And then there's a really good female black belt down in North Carolina and South Carolina named Caitlin Huggins. And she fixed my over-under pass. And like those were like kind of my 2 of my go-tos. And those 2 made them so much better.
Yeah, I love those seminars where the person holding the seminar isn't doing, showing you 15 different techniques or doing anything too fancy or crazy, that they're picking like 2 or 3 fundamental techniques and just cleaning up those little things just to make it better. I think those are the best seminars.
And I agree with you. And like I've been lucky. I've had a chance to roll and go to some really good seminars. Like I did a Dave Camarillo seminar a couple of weeks ago where I've been training a lot. Obviously when you run an academy, if you want to be an active competitor, you need to seek out other places to work, right? Unless you're, like Lucas Lepre has a gym, like 10 miles from me. Lucas is just bringing guys in. I get that. But like, I can't do that. Yeah. So I'm always going, and one of the places I get to a lot is Charlotte Jiu-Jitsu Academy with John Piper. And John Piper is the crucifix master. There is not a better person out there. I dare somebody to find somebody better than John Piper. And when I went to Dave Camarillo's seminar, he was doing this Kimura grip from the back to armbar and a few other things that jives very well with what I've been learning from John Piper. And it was like, it's things like that that make it a lot better. And what I honestly feel like there's one of the biggest problems I see with like, especially blue belts in general, like white and blue belts, but like you see it in jiu-jitsu a lot where it becomes very monkey see, monkey do. Like, the best way I can describe it is I used to work at this gym in Atlanta, Georgia. It was a Gold's Gym. And like a lot of pro wrestlers would train there, and a lot of Atlanta's stripper population would also train there. And,
we have that here too.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's like the 4 a.m. crowd or like the 3:30 a.m. crowd.
But one of the guys, like there was this one guy, Big Bob, and Bob was like 6'4", like 290 and like a bodybuilder build, like legit bodybuilder build. And somebody that tall, it's impressive. And granted, he was on a lot of drugs, but he would, you're not going to be that big and not be. And he had this guy that worked out with him, Tony. And are you a South Park fan by any chance?
No, not at all.
Okay. So the only way I really described Tony was like there was this one, like early on they had a genetic engineering guy, and then he had this little like clone monkey thing that would follow him around named Kevin. Well, that was kind of Bob and Tony.
Okay.
Tony was like 5'4", 5'5", and Bob is like 6'4". And so like similar hair, similar builds, they always worked out together. One day Tony's by himself and he's sitting on the floor doing lat pull downs instead of sitting in a little chair. And Bob would do that because Bob was 6'4" and had really long arms. Tony's 5'4". He doesn't need the reach. He doesn't need like all of that extension.
Mm-hmm.
And I walk up to him and I'm like, "Hey Tony, why are you on the floor, dude?" And he's like, "Well, this is how Bob does it." Bob is a foot taller than you and has like almost twice the amount of arm length that you do. He needs that. You really don't. Well, this is how Bob does it. And I see that a lot in jiu-jitsu. Like somebody becomes very infatuated with how somebody does jiu-jitsu.
But it just might not work for them, right?
Exactly. And it's like, but like this is how so-and-so does it. I'm like I love Keenan Cornelius. It's another guy I love watching compete. I am not going to be able to play that game. I'm 5'10". I'm about 200 pounds. There's no, and I'm, there's no way. But it doesn't mean I can't get stuff from him. It doesn't mean I don't pick up stuff like that. But if I were to like go on and buy, somebody like that's online university and try to, completely replicate his game, I might be able to do it. But that's a lot of hard work, man. Like that's tough.
Yeah.
And I think we, in general, kind of get into that. And then especially some of these older guys, I started off at 31. And, if you're a white belt or you're a blue belt and you're in the super heavy or the ultra heavy division, let's just be really honest. It's whatever bigger dude ends up on top.
Yeah.
And so,
and it usually ends up just being two big guys standing up for however long, 5 minutes, 6 minutes. It's rare that you actually see them hit the ground because most of the time they just stay standing the entire time.
Because they don't have takedown skills.
Yeah.
And what I see a lot is you'll have guys who are like, they maybe train takedowns 2 weeks before a tournament. They're the biggest guy in their gym, so they're used to being able to muscle everybody around. And then they get somebody else who's just as big and just as strong, and it's like, and then it becomes that white belt dance where we're both sitting there locked out and da-da-da. And I tell my guys all the time, I'm like, they roll with me, and they're like, well, my takedowns aren't very good. I'm like, compared to me and compared to people in this room, go compete. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
And they land that first takedown, and they just like, I'll get that same look. They all kind of look up at me like, wow. I know. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
But when I train my guys, we train judo like judo guys. We train wrestling like wrestling because there is a little bit more technique involved. I mean, think about how many, like, I don't know if you've had a chance to travel around a lot and go to different gyms.
A lot. Quite a bit, actually.
Good. And so, like, think about how much detail you've learned on a cross-collar choke. Now, how much detail have you ever gotten like that off of a judo throw?
Yeah.
It's not meant to be an insult. I happen to cross-train, and I kind of got lucky. You know what I mean? Like, I get the question all the time, how'd you end up on so many fight to win? Well, I'm a Judo Black Belt who actually prefers those rules over the standard Judo rules because I hate current Judo rules. And I'm like, it was tailored, and I just kept applying. Like, I didn't know anybody. I had a super fight September 30th at Toro Cup, which Toro BJJ is they're in Durham, North Carolina, and it's Toro BJJ and Cage Side MMA. And they do like gis and equipment and stuff like that. And they do super fights, and it's always for charity. Like when my instructor had a stroke, the next Toro Cup after that, all the proceeds went to him.
Oh, that's cool.
They're cool. Very cool about that stuff. I love those guys. And so I had a match that day against the guy who actually won Brown Belt Worlds last year. And I woke up that morning, and I was at my mom's house, and I woke up, and I looked at my phone, and I had a Facebook message, an email, and a text message from Seth Daniels saying, hey, April 19th, Keith Barrett, Fight to Win Baltimore, Judo 205 Black Belt, are you down? Yeah, I'm down. I'm there.
Yeah, why not?
Then I stepped on the scale and I was 219, so I had to cut some weight. But but all I'd done is apply. And I remember like a week before at work, what Seth will do is he'll send out this email to you where it's like when he starts matchmaking for cards, and it's like you don't have a match, but you might. Just keep that in mind. It's basically what it says. And I had gotten that, and I got really hyped up. It was a Saturday. I'm at work, and I was all excited. And then I thought about it. I'm like, he's just sending that out because I applied. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then when I got that email, and I got all the messages about the match, I was like, oh, shit. And then I went back through, and I checked my email, because I'd applied a bunch of times. And I got one other email like that, like 2-3 years ago. I don't remember what event it was for or anything else, but I'd gotten the email, but nothing ever happened with it. And I was like, oh. So this is how it works. Okay, cool. And I cut the weight. I showed up, and man, it was one of like the things where I was so happy to be there. Granted, I had a panic attack before I went out, but it was.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, like, how's your stress level in these fight to wins? Because you have the music, you got the lights, you got that big walkout. I'm probably shakes you up a little bit right before your match, right?
Well, what happened was I got there and I was feeling the night before we weighed in, and I grew up in D.C. My wife's from Arlington, Virginia, and her family lives out by Dulles Airport, which is like, if there's no traffic, it's probably about half an hour, 40 minutes into the city, right? But we have to go to Baltimore, and we're staying at her sister's house. And so we had to drive out to Baltimore Friday night in DC traffic. Weigh-ins were at 6, and it's me and my son. And we're driving out there, and I'm like, I'm dying, I'm starving. I'm looking at him, and I'm like, dude, I don't know if I can do this. I'm dying. And we went out to eat afterwards, and there's this local spot. There was only one in Rockville when I left DC years ago, but there was one out by, I saw it when we were pulling off, like I saw food, and I was like, we're going to go there. And it's called Silver Diner, and they went really healthy. And we walk in, and the waiter was a really nice guy. He was a little effeminate, and he walks up to us like, so the specials, I'm like, look, I want water. He wants a milkshake. Bring us bruschetta to start. He wants chicken and waffles. I want the Buffalo Huevos Rancheros and a waffle. And he's like, I don't care what order it comes out, just bring food. Like, I was rude, I was mean, I was hangry. And after I started to eat, A, I felt a lot better, and B, I looked at him, I left him a very nice tip, and I said, dude, I apologize, I was starving, my bad. And he just laughed. And so we showed up, and then I'm in the back getting loose. And my friend John Shell, who owns our gym in Fuquay, me and him kind of helped our professor set up his network and do a lot of things for him. And like when he went down, I was a purple belt, he was a brown belt, but we were the ones who kind of had to take the reins because we were the ones who had always been with him. Like we started off in his gym, and John has always been like a rock for me. John won Masters Worlds at brown belt in 2018, and he competed 20 times that year and won his first MMA fight by knocking out a 19-year-old.
Wow.
He started dating a 25-year-old. Mind you, he was 43 and has a steel rod in his back.
Wow. And what weight class is this guy in?
Middle.
Middle, okay.
And he took third. He in absolute, he lost to the guy who eventually won it. He was ultra heavy. And the guy who took second was one of the guys he beat in his division. So
wow, that's impressive.
John is one of those guys that is just like, you hear people who say, I don't give a fuck. John, I've never met somebody who doesn't give a fuck as much as John Shaw. Like, that's the only way I can describe that man. And I FaceTimed him. I was like, John, and he goes, what's your problem? I'm like, dude, I'm freaking out. And he goes, why? I'm like, this is fight to win. I was like one of the top 5 fights of the night. Like, from order, I was like, what the hell? Like, I'm freaking out. And he's like, how hard have you worked? How much have you busted your ass? Why the fuck are you freaking out? Pull your shit together. I'm like, okay, John. And we're standing backstage. And so like I said, I grew up in DC. there's a style of music in DC called go-go. And go-go is basically like rap, but it's got a live band. Like, have you ever heard the song Hot in Here by Nelly?
Yeah.
Okay, so you know when he goes, I feel like bustin' loose?
Right.
Well, that's actually a go-go song called Bustin' Loose. It used to be Mike Easton's walkout song when he was in the UFC. And Chuck Brown is considered the godfather of go-go. And so I always said I wanted to be the white dude who walks out to go-go in D.C. Well, I was in Baltimore, so close enough. And I picked a song by a group called Junkyard called Rough It Off. And I just remember sitting there and, like, you know, like they announced my name. I hear the beat drop. I knew what beat I wanted to walk out on because, like, every match, like every time we started sparring, like the entire time leading up to Fight to Win, I knew what my walkout song was. So the first song that was played while we were sparring was my walkout song. And, like, so I could just visualize and visualize and visualize.
Nice.
And I walk out and I hear it and, like, I look around and I scream, like, let's fucking go. And I knew it. Like, as soon as it all went away and I was like, oh, this is what it's supposed to be. And I just owned it when I walked onto the stage. And I was like, I walk out. He tried to throw. I passed his guard. I went for a choke. Didn't work. We went back on our feet. I went for a fireman's carry, a kataguruma. He got out of it and then hit me with a friggin' beautiful tomonagi. And I'm down 1-0. And I'm like, I stood up and I was like, all right, that was good. That was good. And he tried that tomonagi again. And I passed. And as soon as I passed, I was like, you're mine. And he went to turtle. And I've got this one choke I love. It's called the Gerby choke, but I've kind of renamed it the captain's necktie. And it's like a Peruvian necktie in the gi, but you use your lapel, not theirs. So I start feeding for that, and he turns back, and I start setting up a bow and arrow, and I was like, you're mine. And as soon as I sat back with it, I knew it. I was like, you're done. And he tapped, and I was like, that's it. I stood up, and I screamed. And I'm not the guy who does that. Like, I usually, like, kind of like just, like, I'm the guy who wouldn't spike the ball. I'd hand the ball to the referee. Like,
yeah, like, thanks for having me type of thing.
Right. Yeah. But, like, I mean, after everything, all the work and all the self-doubt and all, like, everything I'd been through in my life, it was like, that was the moment. I was like, oh, yeah. I was so, it was awesome. And that's why I love those things, man. Like, Seth, he runs a great show. Like, brought me out to Pittsburgh. I was like, okay. And I won that. And then, like, the funny thing is that match in Arizona, I randomly started following that guy on Instagram like 6-8 months before that. I'm like, oh, this guy's Brazilian national judo team, a BJJ Black Belt from Brazil. That's my style. He's cool.
Yeah.
And so I walk up to Seth after I won in Pittsburgh, and I was like, so you got a card in San Diego? My brother lives out there. I've got frequent flyer miles. Like, what's up? And he goes, can't do San Diego. I was like, oh. And he goes, Arizona, 2 weeks. Can you do it? I'm like, let me make sure I'm going to have a job. Yeah.
Nice.
And what was even funnier, the day I flew out, I actually had a job interview, which for the job I have now.
Okay. And
I walk in, and I had on a pair of Doc Marten dress shoes, and like 3 people noticed they were Doc Marten dress shoes, and they look at me and they go, we do group interviews here. I said, okay, then what does that mean? They was like, so you're going to sit down in this conference room with like 6 people and we're all going to interview you. I'm like, okay, cool. And they're like, does that make you nervous? And I'm like, I'm going to take a shot in the dark, and this is either going to get me the job or it's not. and I go, well, I said I have a flight to catch. And they're like, yeah. And I said, so I'm going to fly out to Arizona today, and then tomorrow night I'm going to walk onto a stage in front of around 1,500 people and probably 10, 20,000 watching on streaming. And I'm going to fight another grown man for money in my pajamas. And so when I left, I said, so what are the next steps here? And she goes, well, we're hiring for 3 positions. You're the first interview. We've got like 20 other people to interview. You probably won't hear anything till the end of next week. But then the next step would be like, an HR interview, and then we'll tell you if you have the job or not. I'm like, okay, cool. And so I'm not expecting to hear anything. I go to Charlotte Airport, and I kind of hang out for a little bit. I get on my flight, and I had to lay over in Oklahoma City. I landed in Oklahoma City, and I've already got an email from HR wanting to set up my next interview. Like,
nice.
That's why you take risks, people.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's good. And what kind of work do you do?
Oh yeah. I work for GE. I'm an inside sales rep in their power grid division.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, it's like I would love it if I'm working on growing the academy and but I've got a wife and kids and bills, and it's like
Yeah.
You got to have a job, man. It just doesn't work that way.
No,
One of the
for
reasons
sure.
I wish I'd found this when I was 20, and I could have done this when I was poor, and it didn't matter.
And are you still competing in jiu-jitsu, like outside of like the fight to wins and stuff like that? Like, do you do the
Yeah.
IBJJFs, the grappling industries, and all that stuff?
I don't do the smaller ones that much anymore, but back in 2016, in March, I separated my shoulder. I'd have surgery in April, and I'd already competed 5 times at that point in the year, and it was early March, and I was kind of burnt out, and I was like, man, why am I competing this much? And then when I got hurt, I was like, wow, I really missed this. So 6 months to the day of my surgery was the first IBJJF in Charlotte. And I went out, I competed, and I won. And since that day, which was August 7th, 2016, I've competed 45 times.
Wow.
And so, I've got a super fight January 18th with Serious Grappling down in Myrtle Beach. It will be available off their website on pay-per-view. Use the code Kirk if you want to watch it.
Nice.
I've got I've got 3 or 4 options for February. I'm debating on right now. There's a IBJJF in Atlanta. There's a Sambo tournament I might go do the same day. So I'm kind of deciding which way I want to go on that. I've got a super fight for Fuji. I think in the beginning of March. Up in Virginia Beach. So, I compete pretty regularly, and I just did a tournament there's a really good black belt down in Greenville, South Carolina named Rafa dos Santos. He's an Alliance guy. And I just took second at his event, and then he's doing, there's some things I'm working on with him behind the scenes, and a couple of my other guys. I've really helped out there's a group called Pro Jitsu. It was 2 guys based in North Carolina, and I competed on the first card. I have reffed or competed or even hosted pretty much there's only maybe 3 or 4 events they've done that I haven't been a part of. And their last one was August 31st. And I actually competed on the card, did all the matchmaking, and we have some really cool stuff we're working on with that as well too.
Nice.
So yeah, the one thing is after Pro Jitsu was 2 weeks after Arizona, and in Arizona I pulled my hamstring pretty bad, and I did Pro Jitsu and I lost, and the whole ride home I was kind of cursing myself out, and my son was laughing at me, and it wasn't because I lost, because I'm a 500 fighter at best. I don't care. I'm out there to compete and to do my best and to get better. And if I win, I win. If I lose, I lose.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some matches I'd like to have back, and I've had, days either because of injury or because I wasn't my best. I've lost some things I felt I shouldn't have, but we all go through that. That's just normal. But I've competed so much, especially in the past few years, where it's I'm turning 42 in April. I've done a lot of this because I've also been trying to build, not only a personal brand, but, a gym brand. And I'm like, man, I have done more than a lot of people out there in this, who do this have done. And I'm like, I don't need to compete 2 or 3 times a month anymore. I don't need to kill myself like I've been doing. And some of these events, I remember doing a bunch of stuff back to back to back. And by the third one, I was so run down. I remember my last year at Purple, I did IBJJF DC, then I did IBJJF Atlanta, and then by the time IBJJF Charlotte came around, I was just a husk of myself, and I was beat down, and I had a crappy showing. And then beginning in November, I did a super fight up in Virginia, and I had taken some time, and I'd relaxed, and I'd let myself heal, and I was still a purple belt at the time, and I went against a brown belt, and I missed fastest submission by about 10 seconds. It was literally single leg guard pass north-south Kimura was the entire match.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, this is what happens when you're healthy. Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think at some point, especially if you're trying to
So
run an academy and do other things, I think at some point you have to make a decision. Do I want to actively
yep.
compete all the time and dedicate my time on me, or am I trying to, boost up my academy and try to share my knowledge and try to grow the academy and try to make that work? Because I don't think you can have both. I think you can try to do both, but eventually you're burning the candle from both ends.
And that is true, and I do agree with that. But like I've always done well when I compete, but what I and help grow my gym. But what I do differently now is I do more super fights because it's one match, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
not like I remember doing Charlotte IBJJF back in October, and like I had like 3 or 4 matches that day, and I hadn't done that in a while, and I was like,
And
oh,
you get
this
home and you're
sucks.
dead.
Yeah, and but like for me, it's I I want to be out there and like, but what the biggest thing for me is I don't try to do things on the same day my guys are doing things. Like that's one of the reasons I don't do like your grappling industries or your US grapplings or your new breeds or things like that anymore is because my guys are competing and I've had to be there and coach and compete. And like the real big breaking point was the serious grappling that I'm doing. The second one I did, my son got his first super fight. Now you're talking, you have like 5 or 6 black belt fights on the card. You have like 6 or 7 brown belt matches, a bunch of other ones to boot. You had 2 kids, they were both like 13, win match of the night. And my son lost a razor thin decision.
Hmm.
And, you can go back, I've had half the people who've seen the match said my son won, the other half said the other kid won. It was a hell of a match either way, and it was just an amazing match to watch. But when we got done, my son like walks backstage and collapsed. Like he was really dehydrated. Da da da. And so like I had to compete after that, and so
Yeah.
I was like the second or third match after intermission. Well, intermission's coming to an end. I'm trying to get myself ready, and I'm already kind of like just down because like I was so stressed out. And then I see the nurse and my wife walking him out. And I walk up. I'm like, what's going on here? And they're like, oh, he just wants fresh air.
Yeah. And then you have to go compete.
That was one of the guy's my buddy. Like I love the guy I went against and he beat me. And he's really good. But like again, that wasn't me. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? I was done. And that's one of those things though where if you're gonna do this, these are things you have to keep in mind. And like I tell my guys, like what I do is I have classes. The only day I don't have classes are Fridays, and I have like a Saturday morning open mat. I have like the Sunday judo class, but those are at times where like I consider the weekends kind of more my time, where this is where I go to get better. And it's not just so I can be a better competitor, but it's also so I can be a better coach, so I can give so I can come up with new things for you guys and try to help
Mm-hmm.
you guys out. Now, if you guys want to come with me to the places I go, and a lot of my guys will. I'm like, you're more than welcome. But that's the time where I'm gonna go and I'm gonna work
It's
on
for
you.
you. Yeah.
Right. And I feel like a lot of instructors miss that. They really do because you have guys that get into that rut and they teach the same things again and again and again and again, and it's like you can't just do that, man. Jiu-jitsu evolves. Like it has to. Like
Yeah.
you have to evolve with it.
How do you set up your classes? Do you do a theme like for the month, or like
I
how does it work?
I, I used to kind of just fly from the hip and kind of go off of what that was done, but then I thought about it and I actually wrote a curriculum, and it's like 26 weeks, and it's a new thing every week. But what it does is like so the way my classes go, we warm up, which is just a moving warm up, nothing crazy. Like we shrimp and we fall and we roll and we do stuff like that just to kind of get ourselves loose. And then there's 4 drills that I learned from my instructor. One is we call it 5 times around. It's basically you start off in mount, you go around the circle, and you end up back in mount. But it's very detailed, like, as you move from pen to pen.
Okay.
There's a drill called Don't Give Your Back, where it's basically like I start off in your guard, I posture up, I take 2 steps back, you technical lift out of guard, push my head down, I go to turtle, you come around like you're trying to take my back, I pull you back into guard.
And then we start back again. Nice.
Right. And then there's like a sweep variation and a triangle variation off of that. Right. So I will put, after warm-ups, we do either those two drills together, or there's a sequence where, like, if you get really good and you understand both drills, you can do them all at once, where it's attacks from guard and attacks from mount. So you're going through, like, you're chaining the submissions together. It's not like, well, this is one and I can do this one. No. It's like I go from a cross collar to a Kimura to an armbar to a triangle to an omoplata. You roll out of the omoplata, there's another armbar there. And then if I understand the drill, then I go to mount, Americana, straight armbar, Kimura, head and arm choke. And then there's a whole series where instead of grabbing 4 fingers in the lapel, we go thumb in the lapel. And there's like an Ezekiel, an armbar, a kind of cross-collar choke, and a mounted triangle. And so we do two of the 4, and like we kind of, get ourselves moving with that. Then we get into technique. And so then with technique, it starts off with standing. So I'll teach, I've got about 10 or so, certain ones for gi, certain ones for no gi. Sometimes it'll be the same thing all week. Like if it's a hip, if it's hip toss, you can do hip toss, gi, and no gi. If it's osotogari, I don't like to teach that no gi. So maybe we'll do single legs with that or something like that. But then after that, then we'll maybe do a little, specific drilling for the position we're working. But then we work a certain position all week. So like I'm rebooting curriculum. We're starting fresh again tomorrow. And so we're starting with mount. So we're going to do how to get to mount, how to escape mount, what can we do for mount when we're there, that type of thing. And that's going to be all week.
Okay, nice.
So, and then what happens is you're learning mount. So you're learning how to do an armbar. You're learning how to do a cross collar choke. You're learning all of these things. And then when we get to armbars a little bit down the road, okay, here's how we do armbar from mount. Here's how we do armbar from closed guard. All these things, some of it's going to be review, some of it's going to be new. And so it's not like you're learning something this week and you're never going to see it again until we start over again. No, it's all part of the theme. It's part of the drills we do and things like that. So it always repeats itself. That's the thing about jiu-jitsu. Like there are movements that like you do here and you do here and you do here, and they're all the same. It's just the context in which you're doing them. Am I doing it to pass your guard, or am I doing it to dismount? Like there's a way I put my elbow down where I'll do the back step pass, but I'm using it with my elbow down, not reaching underneath your head, because I'm not really hunting for leg locks. I'm looking to keep you in place. Mm-hmm. Well, that's the same way where if I'm in mount and I don't want to be in mount anymore, I put my elbow down the exact same way, and I either sit to side control or reverse case it. So it just depends.
No, it's really interesting. We follow the same. I'm with Brazilian Top Team, and we have a curriculum. So we have a day 1, day 2 white belt, a day 1, day 2 blue belt, and so on. And so you basically have to learn. You're basically going through fundamentals and learning. Example, as a white belt, you have 60 techniques that you have to learn. So 30 for white, for day 1, 30 for day 2, and then those techniques chain themselves to the blue belt curriculum. So once you get your blue belt, you're like, oh, well, I did that as white belt, but here's the variation now that I'm a blue belt type of thing. So it kind of follows that same thing. I think having a curriculum, and I talk about it a lot, is really key. I find more and more academies are jumping into that whole curriculum and trying to put a base and a foundation down to their teachings. It makes things a lot easier, and I think it's easier for the students to kind of chain those together afterwards.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I've got like a kind of wall. And I've got, I bought one of those big desk calendars, and I've got, I've got between now and April, beginning of April, kind of mapped out, but that one's for competition. So it's like competition, seminars, anything like that goes on the calendar, so you know what's going on week to week, so we can plan as a team, what do we want to go to? And then on top of that, I've got, an Excel spreadsheet that is my curriculum printed out on the wall, and it's like, okay, we're here. This is what we're doing today. This is what we're doing tomorrow. And this is how it's going to repeat itself. But a lot of that makes, my instructor was very old school. And he was very much it was kind of his way early on. But then he started to realize that, how the world was and how to expand out. And, he lost that very old school Brazilian mentality. But, John and I would always come in hey, professor, we saw this technique and we think it's really cool. And the first words out of his mouth would be, try on me. And you're like, well, this isn't going anywhere. And then he started to get more into it and start to understand that there was a wider world out there. And he was Was it stuff he was going to be good at? No, but man, he could sit there and it's like, as well as I do. If you watch a YouTube video, all the details aren't there, because why else? If I put all the details there, why are you going to buy my instructional? Why are you going to bring me out to your academy for a seminar? Why are you going to pay me for privates if you can go to my free YouTube channel and get it all?
Yeah,
it's just business. You know what I mean? And so Ruben would look at it and be like, "Oh, what he's not telling you is this. Oh, now it works." And like a lot of those old school guys, like I remember like listening to a podcast a few years ago with Dean Lister. And Dean was talking about, because I guess he had wrestled some, he was rolling with his instructor one day and he went for a switch. Oh, that's dumb American wrestling stuff. That's not jiu-jitsu. That's not jiu-jitsu. A little while later, Dean goes for the head and arm choke. Again, oh, that's dumb wrestling stuff. That's not jiu-jitsu. That's not jiu-jitsu. And this is back when Dean's a blue belt. Well, like 6 months later, Salo and Zanchi come in for a seminar and they show the switch. They show the head and arm choke. See, look how jiu-jitsu's evolved. I mean, Ruben was telling me a story. He went with his instructor out to Chicago, and this is like 1994, 95. And he's giving a seminar, and he also had some MMA fights. And he goes, man, I was working with this guy, and he was really good. He had good kickbox, he had good wrestling, but he didn't know jiu-jitsu, so I'm showing him jiu-jitsu. And my instructor comes up to me, and in Portuguese goes, quit showing the Americans so much. Now, here's the thing I found out. And I said, so who was the guy? And he goes, his name Pat Miletich. Oh.
That guy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, remember we're at Hooters watching the John Jones Vitor Belfort fight. And Ruben came up underneath Harrelson Gracie originally. But would go train like for sport at Carlson's gym in Brazil. And Ruben's telling me about this skinny little 16-year-old he used to roll with all the time named Vitor. Yeah, that Vitor. That Vitor. And so Vitor's got that armbar locked up on Jones. And so you know how some coaches are very calm and like, okay, go here, do this. That's not Ruben. Ruben's very loud and very animated when he coaches. And Ruben's like, go Vitor, changing the game, pull snappy, like losing his mind, wanting Vitor to break John Jones's arm. Mm-hmm. And there's this guy sitting behind us. Now I understand Ruben's kind of losing his shit right now, and I understand that other people are here to watch the fight. I get that, but also like you can ask nicely. Or you can be a dick about it. And this guy starts like running his mouth. I stand up and I turn around and I go, look, I'm going to buy your next round, but let me explain something to you. You see that man right there? That's a 5th-degree black belt from Brazil. He's a Judo Black Belt. He's also a former Brazilian Special Forces. He used to train with that guy back when he was, when Vitor was 16. So he's kind of excited right now. I know he's acting like an asshole, but, I'm going to buy you a round. If you want to move tables, cool. But, like, dude, just don't. It's not going to end well for you. Like,
it's not worth it, buddy.
Serious? And I'm like, as a heart attack. Seriously, don't. And he was like, whatever. And, like, I sent a beer to his table. And, like, it was just like, dude, like you don't do that.
Yeah. That's funny. So, that's good. Yeah. Hey, I have a little Q&A for you. Just to get to know your jiu-jitsu a little bit and kind of what you like to do and things that you don't like to do. So, if you were to name your favorite guard, what would it be and why?
Half guard, because I have really stumpy legs, and I actually I never had a guard game as a white or a blue belt because I had better judo than everybody, and I could take you down. And why get in the guard if I don't have to? And then as a purple belt, I actually started, when I got my purple belt, I took over my instructor's kids program. And so I was always playing on my back because what am I going to do? Like squash you? That's not cool. And so I spent most of my purple belt trying to figure out what my guard was. And I tried everything. And then about a year before I got my brown belt, I realized, hey, dummy, half guard's still a guard and you're actually halfway decent at it. So half guard is my guard game.
Nice. Do you ever play with any like lapel guards? Is that your thing or?
I don't. I honestly, like, I try to make, like, as bad as my no-gi game is, I try to make it so my gi and my no-gi games are very similar.
Okay.
The only two areas, like, my no-gi game is, like, kind of lacking are takedowns, because just my wrestling is not as good as my judo.
Okay.
And I've got a lot of stuff from front headlock, like if, like, I sprawl on top of you or, like, you turtle up, like, from that front headlock position that requires lapel, and I'm just not as good at it no-gi as I am gi, because I do rely on the lapels a little bit too much with that.
Okay. Okay. Nice. What's your favorite pass and why?
I go over under a good bit, because I like to create that pressure, and there's a lot of ways, like if you've got somebody who's got really good hips, there's a lot of ways to freeze it. Like I've always, like the first pass I always teach my guys is knee cut, because it's the most versatile pass in jiu-jitsu. But at the same time, it's when you get higher level competitors and they've got good hips and it's harder to keep them down, something like over-under pass, if you know how to set it right, is much easier to control than something like a knee cut.
Yeah, it makes sense. Okay. And how about your favorite sweep?
Actually, what I do a lot for sweeps, I either go, like, from half guard, a lot of times I go lockdown, or I'll come up to dog fight and I'll roll through, like I'll basically reach for your forearm, and then when you start posting out further and further,
You're like pulling it in, okay.
Yep. And then if I'm playing close guard, actually I really like, we call it, everybody's got different, pendulum, flower, we call it breakdance.
Okay.
That would be my favorite.
Okay, nice. Cool. Do you have a favorite submission?
Kimura
Kimura?
and armbar from Keisugatami.
Nice.
Like, those are the two that, like, I'm kind of known for.
Okay, nice. So our professor, Fabio Mastermind Holanda, he has a Kimura DVD series, which is like pretty intense. If you're a Kimura guy, I would say it's worth picking it up. So it's Professor Fabio Holanda, and if I'm not mistaken, it's on like BJJ Fanatics and all those different places you can buy it. He was known as a Kimura guy too. So yeah, if you get a chance, check that out. You could probably find it on YouTube and whatever too.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I only really land Kimuras from North South.
Okay.
But like I went to a seminar back in 2014, I guess it was. The guy actually passed last year, named Mick Lowe. He was the head of UK Judo for a very long time. And for the whopping price of $25, the seminar started at 10, and I left at 5:30, and it was still going.
That's crazy.
Oh my God. And he did a lot of work on Newaza, on groundwork. And one of the things he said is, what's your number one weapon to escape a pin? It's your hips. What pin keeps your hips the furthest from their hips? North-South. And I was like, huh. And that's where I kind of became obsessed with North-South. And then after working with Marcelo Cohen, I got real good with that Kimura. And a lot of it isn't because I've got such a nasty Kimura, but it's because how I control off of it, that you can't put your back on the mat. You can't really go anywhere. So I'm going to get the Kimura. I'm going to get a super Kimura. I've got my brother-in-law, when I was up in D.C. over Christmas, showed me the Tariqa Plata, which I'd never seen before, and I'm starting to play a lot with that. Or I'm just going to wrist lock you.
Nice. So my question for you: so if you're passing guard, so if you pass someone's guard, you're obviously you're not sitting in side control. You're going directly north south.
Nope, I'm going to side. So my entire game starts in side control. And now if I can go straight to north south, cool. Like I've got a match on my Instagram that was short enough to fit on Instagram. The guy pulled really sloppy, and I basically passed the north south.
Okay.
But like I'm in side control, and that arm that's closest, that arm on my side, what you do with that depends on what dictates what I do next. Like if you're keeping it up and you're not trying to get your frame and bring that elbow in, I'm going to sit out the Keisugatami, and I'm going to attack your arm. And because of the way I do it, I catch a lot of high level guys. Like they're like, you don't want to go to Keiso in jiu-jitsu. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And then they're tapping to an armbar, that cheesy little armbar, and they're like, how did you do that? Well, that's kind of my secret. And I mean, I've rolled with guys who look, I'm not going to say names, but like I roll with a really high level black belt who's a buddy of mine. And he let me get to queso. Like, I'm not going to sit there and act like I got there because I'm back. No, this guy.
He allowed you to get there.
Exactly.
Right.
He allowed me to get there. And I didn't get the arm bar, but I came really close. On his way out. And I ended up back in side control. And he looked at me dead in the face as he put me in guard and then proceeded to triangle me. And I was in the triangle. He looks at me and goes, "You are never getting to that position on me again." And I was like, "Tap, yes, sir." You know, and like I said, I am not the type who is going to, do something like, I know my limitations. I know how good I am, and I know how good you are, and I know what I'm capable of. And, that's a guy who I'm like, you have beat some of the best in the world, literally, and you're my buddy, and we're rolling because you want some work, and you're being very nice to me, and I appreciate that.
Nice.
But then, like, if you are trying to frame, I'm trying to smash that hand down and windshield wiper over it with my shins, and that's how I set up north-south. Because I don't care about the arm I'm attacking. I care about your other arm. If I'm controlling your other arm, the attack's easy. But if I'm not controlling the other arm, you can keep putting your back to the mat, and I'm never going to get what I want.
Yeah, so you're windshield wiping with your foot that's closest to his hip. Then you want that shin over his arm.
Yes.
Okay. That's really interesting. Yeah, we have something like that in our sequence too, in our purple to brown sequence with that windshield wiping. And it was only at the end of purple that I really realized how useful it is to pin that arm down with the top of your shin, either with your closest leg or the far leg. But yeah, I'm definitely going to try that with the Kimura.
Well, then what you can also do, so like if they're fighting you real hard and you can't get them up, what I'll do is I'll cross my legs. I'll sit on I'm sitting in side control, but I'm crossing my knees over that bicep.
Right.
Like I'm crossing my shins over it, and it's not really north south. It's not really side control.
Mm-hmm.
But like, think about the last time. Like, what belt are you?
I'm a brown belt.
Okay, so when was the last time you caught anybody in an Americana that wasn't a white or a blue belt?
Right.
Well, because of the way you're sitting so hard on that bicep, you're also controlling that shoulder that's closest to you, which is the hardest thing to do to attack an Americana. I've caught some really good guys with Americanas because of that position. I call it like the northeast mount. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you're not north-south, you're not side control. You know what I mean? You're kind of in this awkward direction, but then you can start attacking. And if they don't respect, if they don't respect the Americana, you're going to catch it. But if they do, then they start forgetting about the Americana, and then you go back to your Kimura again.
Nice. That's really cool. Is there a position that you hate to be in?
Closed guard. I hate closed guard. That is like that, because of the way I'm built, it's hard for me to like get it open. Once I'm open, I'm okay, but like you get some of these lanky dudes that'll pull, and I'm just like, I'll end up giving up. Like I'll give up my back to get out of the
That's funny. I find a lot of guys in their 40s have that same answer. Whenever I ask them, what's the guard you hate the most? Everyone says the guard because they hate working. They just stand up and get out of it.
Yeah. I freaking hate it. Like I'm like I will use, like, I love turtle guard. Like I will play it. Like I have like a lot of guys who are like, you play turtle too much. I know, but I like it and I'm kind of good at it. So
there you go.
Why not?
Is there a submission that people land on you from time to time that you're like, you get super pissed off because they landed that specific submission on you?
I used to be like that with the bow and arrow show.
Okay.
I've gotten really good at defending that. But like for me, like half of my game early on was giving up arm bars to get out of bad positions.
Oh, yeah.
And so when you play judo, you never want to go to your back because you can lose by pin.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? When you play jiu-jitsu, you never want to go to your stomach because that's just hell.
Right.
So I would roll to my side and give up my arm. And all the way through purple, I like barely got arm barred because I would just give up my arm and I would use that to pass, and I'd be fine. I'd kind of roll that, roll onto my side and give up my arm.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't work as well at brown belt, and I'm sure it ain't gonna work as well at black belt. So I'm like, I still use it from time to time, but I use it sparingly now, not like as like an official, but like it was my go-to, and I would just like laugh at it. I've had, I remember one night when I was a purple belt, when I was still training at my instructor's gym, 2 purple belts, a brown belt, and a black belt stayed like an hour after class to work on their arm bars so they could catch me next class. And I laughed at all of them when they tried.
That's awesome.
So
that feels good, eh? When you're doing something so well that it forces people to work that much harder to try to figure it out.
I do it with my guys all the time, and they hate me for it. And they're like, and I'm like, but here's the thing: imagine how good your armbar is going to be when you're rolling against another blue belt. So don't worry about it; you're fine.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, because that happens at the academy all the time. We do this. I started helping out my instructor, teaching this class that he has called Fundamentals, and it's mostly white and blue belts, and then you'll get the odd purple and brown that will show up. It's on Saturday at 12. So everyone basically shows up, everyone gets in a circle. It's a 1-hour class, and everyone basically asks a question. So, hey, I get stuck in this all the time, I don't know what to do. And then everyone kind of asks a question, and then we try to merge those questions together as much as possible and then give people answers to them, and then we drill those specific things for an hour. And every now and then, yeah, it's really neat, especially being the instructor, having to get all those questions and put everything together. You start realizing how things connect, and you start realizing things that you wouldn't normally realize just by one simple question. So yeah, it's actually pretty neat. What's funny is that every now and then you'll have a guy that'll be like, I don't understand, Ray always gets me in this stupid position, and I don't understand how to get out. And then another instructor will be like, oh well, I'll show you how to get out of it. And then it kind of forces you to kind of adapt, because everyone's trying to know your tricks and learning all those little ins and outs. So everyone's kind of helping each other out and kind of making each other work at the same time. But I think most people are known for one or two things that they do super, super well. But eventually people catch on, and they have to adapt too, right? So
yep.
Yeah, no, that's really cool.
Well, and I also think that one of the biggest things, a lot of even blue belts and things like that, show up and help out with the kids class if your instructor will let you, man. You
I
get
agree.
so much better from teaching.
Yeah.
I one of the things with that armbar thing I was talking about from Case Katami, it was something I just did naturally that I never thought about, right? And one of my guys one day was like, well, how do you do that? How do I do that? Huh. And so I was kind of good at it, but I got a lot better at it, because now I have to explain it to somebody. And not only do I have to explain it to you, but I have to explain it to you good enough so you can go replicate it.
Yeah.
And that sounds kind of easy, but And I'm lucky I've got the mom that I have, because she's a retired, special ed teacher. So that's she basically how she dealt with me my entire life. And she used to always tell me, she's like, pretend somebody's from Mars and you have to explain it to them. Huh. I like that.
Do you do any sub only fights? Any competition? Yeah.
Oh yeah, I do. So there's a really cool tournament group around us. They're very small, unfortunately, because they really care. It's called U.S. Grappling. They usually kind of they're really successful, North Carolina, Virginia. They've had events as far north as New York, Chicago, places like that. But they run standard points tournaments, and their rules are a little bit different. They white belts can wrist lock, just little things like that. It's slightly different rule set. But the thing that they do that is really cool is a few times a year they have straight sub only. There is no time limit. I had a 45-minute match last year, or 2018, and against some little 25-year-old, and it just kept going and going and going and going.
It's fun though, right?
Oh, I love it. I had a match. You ever heard of the Good Fight?
Yes.
Okay. So I had a match at one of theirs where they do kind of overtime like EBI, but they do it more positionally. Mm-hmm. This is back when I was a purple belt, and the match went for about an hour because there's no time. It's just they call it MBAT, mount, back, armbar, triangle. Those are the 4 positions, and you basically go from each one. And homie caught me 7th time through in the armbar position, hitting a bicep slicer on my left arm. And there's one point maybe in the 3rd or 4th time through where I was sitting there and I'm he had something fairly deep, but I'm you know what? I've actually I helped the Good Fight. I've helped them a lot with reffing. I helped put on probably the greatest grappling super fight event that nobody ever saw that they did in North Carolina a couple of years ago, back in 2016. And I know, and I was helping out a good bit with this tournament. And I'm like, man, he's got this. I got other matches. I got to help out. I should tap. And my son was standing right at the edge of the mat, and he goes, like, almost like he heard my thought. And he goes, all right, Dad, you got this. Well, now you got to break my shit.
Nice. Do you guys have what do you guys have going on for reffing in North Carolina? Like, do you guys have an organization that kind of oversees, or does everyone do their own thing? Are there like courses that you can take, or
everybody does their own thing? Like Naga has a ref course. U.S. Grappling actually has one of the most intensive ref courses. I've been through it, and it's really good. The rest of them are basically like, oh, you got a purple belt? Cool. Like, here, come ref.
Right.
Like, and that's kind of like, there's like, and like, everybody's like, oh, purple belt's reffing, or like, as long as you know what's going on, it doesn't necessarily matter. Because like that one good fight, I had a black belt ref in my match. The second one I did, and the way they work mount, when you're in the mount, like, you can dismount and go to side control, but as long as the person doesn't get a guard or get away and stand up, it's still going.
Okay. Right?
I dismounted setting up a submission from side control, and the ref stopped it. He was a black belt. And he's like, no, you're not mounting anymore. That's it. I'm like, no, it's not. And he goes, no, it really is. And I go, dude, I've reffed way more of these matches than you do. You're wrong. Mm-hmm. He's like, oh, and I'm like, so that event was the year before. And I reffed every match in that event. And to give you an idea, the one of the undercard matches was Oliver Taza and Dave Porter.
Yeah, he's from here, Oliver Taza. He's from Montreal.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Yep. And so then the two co-mains in the main event. First co-main event was Matt Kaplan and CJ Murdoch, who's a local guy down here. Matt's, he was one of the Danaher guys. He's got his own gym. He was Calistein's coach for a long time. The second co-main event was John Calistine and Sean Applegate, who was at the time considered one of the top 10 Planet leg lockers. And then the main event was Roger Carroll, who is a local MMA guy down here, and he's got some really funky jiu-jitsu, and he's fought in Bellator and, everything but the UFC, basically. And he went against Gordon Ryan, and we announced it the day, like, it was a couple months after, obviously, but we announced it, the day we announced that was the main event was the day Gordon won his first EBI.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah. And so, like, it's like, dude, I know a little bit more about this than you do. I don't care what your belt is.
Yeah, because you have purple belts that are really that can be really great refs because they compete a lot. They understand the positions. They understand the point system. Yeah. There's
black belts who I've got some friends of mine who are great black belts, and they're even decent competitors. But like, man, like they don't understand the rules. Like they don't. They're just like okay, like I was actually talking with my friend Dana about this today. I'm like, man, if you're not reading the rules before a tournament and as an instructor and teaching your guys what the rules are, this is how you score, this is what you can do, this is what you can't do, you're setting your guys up to fail. I don't care how good they are.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't care how good they are.
Well, what do you think about this whole Gordon Ryan retiring?
I think Seth Daniels, I think it was either Seth or maybe Danaher, one of them had like the best take on it, where it was basically like, yeah, he's out, he's having a good time, he'll be back. Like, first of all, 3-time, he's minimum he's going to do ADCC, next year, right? Like, let's just be honest, he's not gonna walk away from the super fight with Galvao. Mm-hmm. He's not gonna walk away from being a 3-time, he's not gonna do those things. Now, is he going to be doing as much? I don't know, but at the same time, guys like that, like Gordon is one of the nicest guys you will ever meet. I went to a seminar of his, our school in Lexington back in 2015, before he had won Worlds, before any of that, while he was still a brown belt. He would go up to New York. He's got family up there, and he's like, "Hey, I'm bringing this guy down." I'm like, "Oh, you're bringing Gary Tonin? You're bringing like Eddie Cummings?" I'm bringing Gordon Ryan. I'm like, "Who?" Oh, he's going to be awesome. So for the whopping price of $40,
Nice.
I got to go to a Gordon Ryan leg lock seminar when nobody knew who he was, which was really cool. And then they go, roll with his little 12-year-old brother.
And then get destroyed.
Positionally, yes, he didn't tap me that day. But then in 17, I was on a super fight card at 12 Cup, and Nikki was also on the card with us. And Nikki did a seminar with Ethan Krellenston the next day, and because Ethan was also on the card, and I rolled with both of them. And there's a really great picture. Like Nikki was on my chin. He had my back. He's on my chin, and he's like, "You're not tapping?" I'm like, "I don't think you can break my jaw, Junior." And he said, "Okay." And he slid his hand underneath my neck, and he's on my back, and my head, because I'm bald, is purple. It's on my Facebook somewhere. And it's like bright purple, and he's squeezing the shit out of me, and I tap, and he's like, "Was that it?" I'm like, "Yes, you little shit."
Yeah, no, these guys, like especially Gordon, he's too young, for him. He just wants to take a break,
Yeah.
He wants to enjoy life a little bit, but jiu-jitsu's not going anywhere, you know what I mean? So
No, it's not. I mean, you're that age. Like, I'm not thinking about retiring, and I'm twice his age.
There you go.
Dude. I haven't done as much. I'll be the first to admit it. I'm not even close. But dude, you ain't retiring, dog. Come on.
So Vernon, tell everybody where they could find you on Facebook, your academy, and all that fun stuff.
So Vernon Kirk on Facebook, and then I also have a fan page called Vernon Captain Kirk. I'm on. Yeah, exactly. I've got the Captain Kirk rash guard.
I love it.
You gotta rock it. I also have, it's Relentless Martial Arts, North Carolina. That's on Facebook. We've got relentlessnc.com is our website. And then on Instagram, it's relentlessnc. And my Instagram account is Jiu-Jitsu Dad Bod. And that's actually both of our Twitters as well, too.
Nice. And you're open for travelers and drop-ins at the academy?
I always, here's what I tell everybody. I'm like, if you're coming in from another place, all you're going to do is make us better. You are more than welcome to come and train with us. I love having visitors.
Awesome.
My friend Nader came up today. I had a guy who I met in one of Jocko's extreme ownership groups on Facebook, who's got in-laws right by me, and he was like, "I'm looking for a place to train in North Carolina." I'm like, "Where?" I'm like, "Come see me."
Nice.
And we absolutely had a blast. I mean, like I said, I try to travel a good bit as well. I don't do it near as much because I have more of an office job now. But I'm always open. If you guys, people have questions, they want to bring me out. I got fun stuff. All you gotta do is ask.
Nice.
We'll talk.
Awesome. Cool. Awesome, Vernon. Thanks very much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. You're welcome back anytime. And hopefully we can head out to North Carolina sometimes. I haven't been yet, but it'd be nice to head down there, definitely.
Anytime, man.
You've been listening to Let's Talk Jiu-Jitsu with Raymond Terrence. Go follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page. Turn on notifications and press that like button. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the mat.